Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today we get to do the next video on my indoor gardening series. Now, I live in Utah, zone 6/7. It's starting to get cold outdoors, and although I do grow stuff outdoors over the winter, I love to grow warmer crops indoors. And when I talk about warmer crops, I'm talking about cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers. I grow all sorts of stuff indoors, and we're going to take you along that journey. Now, the last video that I did was showing you my hydroponic units and talking a little bit about hydroponics. Now, I do love hydroponic growing, but I love pot growing a little bit more. And if you go online and look in a lot of hydroponics groups, they talk about how when you grow hydroponically indoors, the plants germinate faster and grow faster. Now, I did an experiment last year, and I'll link that video up above, of growing a ton of different micro-dwarf tomatoes and compared them pot grown versus hydroponically grown. And the results last year were pretty similar. There was no real advantage that I could find to either one. They both grew beautifully. They both produced a lot. I think the hydroponics produced tomatoes and ripened them maybe it was about a week earlier, but not enough to really make a big difference to me. But I decided to repeat that experiment. And so when I planted my hydroponic tomatoes, I forgot to video the part where I planted them in soil. So I think it's been about 7 days, and let me show you the difference. It might be 6 days. What I love about my hydroponics units is my Devo has a day counter on it. So let's go look and see how many days it's been and show you what the plants look like in the hydroponic units and show you what they look like grown in soil. Now, I'm going to do a separate video where I'm going to show you how I plant my plants in soil in pots. We're going to go over everything that you need to grow plants in soil indoors. And throughout this winter season, we'll talk about all the different ways to take care of them. That includes pest control and fertilizing, watering, what kind of soil to use, and all of that. So let's look at my hydroponic unit, see how many days it's been, and then show you what the plants look like. So this is my Devo hydroponics unit. You can see that most of these plants have germinated, and we'll look inside the cells in just 1 second. But if you look right here, and the lights are making it weird. Oh, I'm sorry. But if you look right here, maybe you can see the lights make it a little hard to see. But this is the plant counter right here, and it says it's been 5 days. Okay, 5 days since I planted these seeds. Let's look. So this is a green basil. You can see deep inside that it's germinated. This right here is probably the only one that has not germinated really, but I think I might see a little bit of root hairs coming out of the seed. So this is a radish, but the other two have sprouted. And as you can see, we're getting a second radish coming up. So very carefully, it's probably best to use tweezers to do that because you might accidentally pull up both seeds. But we're just going to let one grow in each unit. And then down in here is the purple opal basil, and the seeds have swollen, but they have not sprouted yet, but I think they'll be just fine. And both tomatoes. This one just barely sprouted. I was a little bit worried. This is an ink spot, and it was the slowest one. This is my orange hat, and it sprouted. And let's go over and look at my other hydroponics unit and see how that's doing. So here we are again. We've got a lot of little seeds sprouting. These are both orange hat. More orange hat. And all of our radishes have sprouted. So very carefully, since there's more than one, let's very carefully remove this. Look at the roots that are already forming. Now, we're going to show you something really fun about growing hydroponically. Let's pull out this one very gently over here. Okay, and then the tomato. I may wait until those get a little bit bigger because when they're this small and I try to pull them out, sometimes I dislodge both of them. So we're just going to wait until that gets a little bit bigger. But 5 days in, and everything is sprouted here. I am really excited. Now these are my pot-grown radishes. They germinated the exact same day. But if you notice, we have a little bit of space in here. Let's take one of these pots out and show you what we can do. So now that these little seedlings have been very carefully pulled out of their hydroponic units, I'm going to find an empty space in here. We're going to dig a nice little hole, bury this little radish in here, and we're going to grow more radishes. These definitely are not going to waste. Look at that little curly, root. It's really cute. So we're going to bury this one in here. Just dig a hole deep enough. Gently stuff them in there. Find another spot. And these will continue growing just fine. I'm going to water them in. Let me grab my little gentle waterer. Now for larger plants, I definitely use a watering can because it's faster. But for little seedlings, I love using this spray bottle. It's a lot gentler, doesn't dislodge the seedlings, and you can still get enough water, and you don't have to constantly pump it, so it doesn't hurt your hands. I'm older and my hands sometimes don't do so well. Now radishes do not like to be transplanted, so I just start these in my regular potting soil in the pot that they're going to be grown out in. But my tomatoes, these are my little tomatoes that I started in, for my pots. And these germinated the same time as the ones in the hydroponics unit. Now I have a Golden Harvest. The Golden Harvest is actually one of AeroGarden's tomato varieties. It's supposed to be a really small variety, but somehow I got seeds that end up being a little larger. They end up being about a dwarf tomato size, but they're a golden cherry tomato. And I absolutely love the flavor. So I've been saving the seeds and growing these out. This is an orange hat. I forgot to put a label there, but I know that orange hat is the only other one I planted. And then the ink spot have not germinated yet. So the Devo hydroponics unit is winning out with the ink spot. Now, once these get about 3 or 4 true leaves, I'm going to transplant those into pots these size. I already have the soil ready, and I'm going to make a video on how I prepare my soil. So this is all ready for the tomatoes to be transplanted. And I think I'll be growing one of each. And we are also going to be planting more tomatoes in another video. I'll show you all the different steps and how I plant things out for growing indoors in that video, but I just wanted to get these started at the same time as my hydroponics unit so that we can have our little test. So now that my hydroponic units have sprouted, I need to add fertilizer. Right now, all that's in those units is just plain tap water. You could use distilled water, which would probably be better. I just don't have distilled water right now, and I usually just use tap water and do it pretty well. But we need to add nutrients because those plants need nutrients to grow. So as soon as you see those first leaves poke through, that's when you add the nutrients. So what I like about the AeroGarden nutrients is it tells you exactly how much fertilizer to use in each size of unit that you have. So my Devo has 15 pods, so you need 16 mils for a 12 unit pod. Mine's 15 units, so I'm going to use more than the 16. Maybe I'll use 18. And we're going to do that the first and second feeding, and then after that we go up to 24 mils because they're large units. Now for my AeroGarden unit, we're going to need 8 mils at startup and 8 mils at every feeding after that. So all I do is I look at this little cup. I'm not even going to show you because it's just, this is in mils or milliliters. This one you can get actually up to 15 milliliters, so we're going to have to do this twice. And let me shake it up a little bit. Okay, so that's 15 right there. Now I forgot to hit record doing my Devo unit, but I put around 18 mils in my Devo, and I'll show you where I put those in, but let's do the AeroGarden unit now. So we pull off the little cover. These are covers for adding water and feeding. Then you just pour it in. And that's it. That's all I need to do. So I will put a reminder on my phone, and in 2 weeks we'll come and do that again. So you need to remember to add nutrients at the recommended levels, because if you don't, your plants are not going to grow well. Let me go show you where we added the nutrients to the Devo unit. One other thing that I'm going to do is on this AeroGarden unit, I'm going to press the fertilizer button so it resets it so it knows that I added the fertilizer today. So this is the Devo unit where I forgot to hit record. This is where I added the nutrients. I added about 18 mils. Do that again in 2 weeks. So now these are good to go. They're just set. I really don't need to do anything else other than continuously check them just to make sure that the water levels haven't reduced. And they're sealed tightly enough that the water levels do not go down until the plants get larger and start using more water. Right now, I probably won't need to fill this for another 3 to 4 weeks. I'll just keep an eye on it. But once the plants start growing, it can get to the point where you need to fill the water at least twice a week, just depending on how large the plants are and how much water they're using. Now, it really makes me happy to have all these plants growing indoors again. I can't wait to start the harvest, and I can't wait to take you along with the entire process. So we'll continue doing update videos on the AeroGarden and pot-grown tomatoes and compare and contrast and see which ones are better. But there's a lot of benefits to growing both ways. Growing in AeroGardens is definitely cleaner. It's not mess-free, absolutely not mess-free. As the plants grow, they do shed leaves, and you do need to go through several water changes. I say when I grow, other people might do it differently, but when I grow, I change out the water completely. You have to pull the plants out, trim the roots, look for rot. I do that about every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's a huge process, something that you don't have to do with pots. But when you grow with pots, you do sometimes have insect issues. As you notice, I show you around my room, you'll see a lot of yellow sticky traps. That's to capture the gnats, and I have to go through several different processes to try to kill them, and we'll go over how we do that. But I've never been able to successfully control the fungus gnats. Now, insect issue is another video we're going to go over, but you can get the same amount of problems with AeroGardens as you do pot-grown plants, and you just have to be careful what you bring into your grow room. Insects are basically brought in, and once they're brought in, they're very hard to eradicate. So it doesn't really matter if they're hydroponically grown or pot grown. If you bring insects into your grow area, you will get insects on either side. Pot grown plants, you're bringing dirt into the house, and it can be a mess. I contain my mess inside the grow room, try to clean it regularly, but that's another issue with pot grown plants. So as we go, we'll continue to update you on the pros and cons of each growing method, and it really just depends on how you want to grow, what works best for you. I don't think there's really seriously a best way to do things that works across the board for everybody. So if you're growing indoors, I'd love to hear how you're doing it. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden.